All right, everyone, welcome to the Love Rising podcast. We are super excited because we have a friend and a fellow health coach and nutritionist and all of the things with us today, Noelle Tarr. She is, I'm going to read her little short bio. Noelle Tarr is a nutritional therapy practitioner, NTP, and an NSCA certified personal trainer. In addition to managing the health and fitness blog, coconutsandkettlebells.com, she owns an online wellness practice specializing in an individual approach to health and fitness, and is the creator of Strong From Home, an online fitness program. She lives in Fairfax, Virginia with her husband, new baby Stella, and 2 boxer dogs. Welcome, Noelle.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I think the last time we talked was probably on the Well-Fed Women podcast, which was, feels like forever ago.
It wasn't.
I can't even remember. Like, I feel like all I do, I look at time in terms of like when I had my child versus, so I'm like, was it before? And anything before Stella feels like, I don't even know, like, was it 10 years ago?
Yeah. It was a long time ago. I was thinking about it because I'll actually still get, so for those of you who don't know, Noelle and Stephanie Ruper have a podcast called Well-Fed Women. If you don't listen to it, you should definitely listen to it. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. And I was on it a long time. It was a long time ago. And I still once in a while will get someone, call me up or something or send me an email and say, I heard you on the Well-Fed Women podcast. And I'm kind of like, it's kind of like how your views change and you develop. Yes. And when you have your own business, it's like kind of hard to do that because it's so kind of public. So it's kind of hard to go back on, not that I said anything I don't agree with, but it's just funny. Like, I'm like, wow, that was me a long time ago. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, though, it was great. And, like, we just had a really open and honest discussion. And, obviously, I love you. And you did a ton of work for me with nutritional therapy. Like, basically, when I was done doing nutritional therapy one-on-one, I'd be like, here's Clara. And so, like, I just was like, I would just give you everybody. And everybody was so happy. And they'd respond to me and say that they were just so happy to have found you and worked with you. And so it's not surprising to me that everybody, heard you on the show and is still reaching out. So that's great.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. It's been an awesome friendship, partnership, all of those things. So we are going to talk about self-care today, which is a super broad subject, but I think all 3 of us love it. And we're all super involved in it on a personal level. And then again, with our clients, and then with our tribes and our audience. So, we always like to start out, though, by asking you your story, like introducing yourself. And if you can, kind of around this idea of self-care, right? You're a multifaceted woman with lots of things going on, but, how has your self-care journey developed over time?
Yeah, I just feel like my story is super long. I don't know how much time you have, so I'll try to shorten it. Like, as I get older, I'm like, I can't really go back that far anymore. But when I was in high school, I did a lot of the general, diet stuff, especially at that time. It was low fat. It was no sugar, don't eat dessert, that sort of thing. It was very restrictive. And I spent years and years doing that. And even into college, I was a collegiate cheerleader, which kind of was a cesspool of more of that stuff. And, very, very much so aesthetically driven. And I did not have a self-care routine. To me, it was more about how can I get my body to look a specific way? And I got all of my worth from how can I, control my food? How can I control my body and therefore control everybody's perception of me? And I just felt for some reason I needed everybody's approval. And to me, the ultimate approval was 6-pack abs and looking like I don't know, what is at this point, I'm like, what are all the magazines, whatever, Self or Women's Health, whatever, all the fitness magazines. I wanted to look like that. And so I spent a lot of years just wasting so much time and effort on that pursuit. And it wasn't until, God gives you these major life-changing moments that force you to evaluate everything you're doing. And for me, that was just an incredible injury that, at 24, people were like, what? Why are you so broken? And I had to stop. I was just spinning out of control. And it made me I wasn't able to work out or do anything for about a year and a half. And I basically had to like rebuild my body after that. And even though it wasn't like a quick fix, it made me ask the question, why am I spending so much time doing these things? In 10 years, I really had to start. That's when I started having that forward perspective, which I think is really important for everybody, is like, where do you want to be in 10, 20, 30 years? Where do you want to be in the end of your life? Do you want to like look back and think, I really wish I would have spent more time on the elliptical in the gym? Or do you wish that you would have cared less about that and maybe spent more time with your family? Or, you know, whatever, doing good in the world. So I really, that's when I had that moment of like, you know, what do I want for my life, and how do I want to be taking care of my body, so that it can get me to age 60 or 70 and I can go for walks and still be walking and not broken in a wheelchair. So, that's really when I had my moment, and I really realized what I was doing. And so it took about, 5 years after that to really get established in, I think, what is a very self-care routine for me now, which is I say no when I don't want to do things and when I don't feel like doing things. And I don't feel, I eat in a way that is right for me. If I feel like eating more carbohydrate, then I do. Like, I get all these questions that are like, this just happened recently. It was like, how did you deny yourself, or how did you not cave in to the carbohydrate cravings when you were breastfeeding? Or what did you do when you had carbohydrate cravings when you were breastfeeding? I was like, I ate carbohydrate, like, what do you mean? What did I do? And so, like, to me, it's eating intuitively. It's eating the things that I need, that my body's telling me I need, not having this super restrictive mentality. First and foremost, focusing on quality. I think that's a huge thing that we do need to do, is, understanding food quality and how food can impact us physically and emotionally and mentally. But from there, like, engaging with food in a way that is positive, that builds you up, and that allows you to operate in a way that is not, you're not controlled by, gosh, what can I not have, and the rules and the restrictions, and you can live your life and not be so like focused on, I got to look at this menu for this restaurant tonight so I can see what I'm going to, what's on my diet plan. And you can live a little bit more, with ease and with balance. And I say no all the time now to, workouts and stuff like that. I had my daughter a year ago, but I'm still struggling. I'm still rebuilding. I'm still trying to figure out what my sweet spot is. And I haven't done any high intensity workouts. And so today it was sleep. I slept until 8:00, which never happens. I was like, whoa, but like 10 years ago, it'd have been like, I should have been up at 5 and I should have already had run 10 miles by now. But like, I don't have time for that. Like, the best thing I can do for my health and for self-care is to sleep and to not judge myself when I don't work out for a week, So that was a roundabout way, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I love it. And I feel like there's this kind of, and you speak to it so well, it's almost like this awakening. It's like,
yeah,
like I ate carbs when I wanted carbs. Like,
yeah,
it's so simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think, why is that? Why is that so many people, that's a big question. I guess I could make it a little bit more narrow. When you get to that place of like, well, if I want a carb, I'm going to eat a carb. That makes the most sense to me. Why are there so many people not at that place? Or what do you think comes in the way of people, like, they're like, oh, but I thought I wasn't supposed to eat carbs,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you guys have probably talked about this before, but diet culture is just like almost a subset of society where we are just a culture of quick fixes and easy solutions and trying to quote unquote fix ourselves. And like in society, we basically diets and, one size fits all solutions sell really well because they really know how to market things really well. And it's so pervasive. It's in everything. And it just becomes a part of us. We learn that through marketing of, let's say, like how to get 6-pack abs in 6 days, or how to lose your belly fat, or how to lose your, how to get rid of cellulite in 21 days or whatever. We're learning constantly through this messaging. And this is what it's trying to do, is teach us that there's something wrong with cellulite. There's something wrong with belly fat. There's something wrong with not having a 6-pack. And so we internally start to feel shame and feel bad about X, Y, and Z physical features on our body. And so we create this situation in our mind, which is, it's bad to look this way, it's good to look this way. And so I need to do everything I can to look this way so that I don't feel shame, because shame is such a powerful motivator, and diet culture knows that. And so we get these messages constantly, so much so that it's just become an absolute in our society. And so now we think that it is wrong or bad to have six-pack abs. And if you have six-pack abs, it's better, which in reality, it's kind of arbitrary. I mean, it's like, what does it matter whether your muscles show in this one part of your region or not? And does it mean that you're more healthy? It doesn't. So why are we so fixated on it? It's an interesting, thing when you can unravel that conversation, or that thought process. But I think it's just become so ingrained in our culture that it's like, it's just the norm. And as, whatever, at age like 6 or 7, little girls are already starting to get these messages from movies, from TV shows, from magazines, from what their moms are saying. And they learn very quickly that it is better to be restricting your food and to be on a diet and to look a specific way. And that just is almost part of our upbringing, and which is kind of terrifying now that I have a daughter, but it's insane to think about how, like, sometimes we don't even know where it comes from, but it's there, that belief and that understanding is there. And it's so hard to unravel and break. However, I will say in the last few years, it has been incredible to see the sort of the empowerment movement of body positivity and understanding that health can be at a variety of weights. And it is such a different culture than what it was 10 years ago. And I mean, this podcast, our podcast, all of that is a great testament to that. I don't think we would have been as successful as we would have been years and years and years ago, because now people didn't have, like you said, it wasn't like they didn't have the unveiling to see like, oh, like it was just such an absolute. It was like, of course this is better, right? Like, of course six-pack abs are better. But now it's like people are finally starting to become aware. And so they're searching out a different narrative, which is this podcast and, my book that I just wrote and all that. And so it's like, although we are starting to make a dent, we still have so much work to do. And so in essence, being on a diet means that you're a better person. You're a little bit more on top of it. You're like, what is it? You're determined. You're so good. It's all those character qualities that I think people want to be. And we always look to people who are so good on their diet, in quotations, as better. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, that it's something we can control, kind of like you said, it's that aspect of control that we feel like we have in our lives. And I think that, what if we shifted that aspect of control over to self-care? And what if we really invested knowing that we can control how we care for ourselves, how we create those routines? One thing I kind of wanted to revisit was you talked about shame. And yes, shame is really driving our diet culture, our image, things like that. But I think something that also I'm seeing is that a lot of the women that I work with feel like when I talk about a self-care routine or putting themselves kind of first in a way to take care of themselves so that they can be there for everyone in their lives, I feel like there's also a little bit of shame that we see externally from that. Like, oh, that's very selfish. That's how can you do that when you have kids and a husband and a job and everything else to take care of? So how do we kind of shift that perception and be okay with putting ourselves first and actually doing the self-care type steps to overcome kind of that shame that might be sitting beneath those actions?
Yeah, I think one of the things that hit me pretty hard after I had Stella was like, you can't pour from an empty cup. So, and even I heard this a lot of times, but you have to put your oxygen mask on first so that you can help everybody else. Because if you're helping everybody else and you die, then you're no help, So you have to put your oxygen mask on first, meaning in order to provide care, you have to be cared for. And that's huge when you become a mom, because it is really easy to get wrapped up in putting your kids first. But by putting yourself first, you're putting them first. And you wouldn't believe the shame that's involved in mom land. But every decision that you make, there's always like what everybody recommends and the best decision. And then the decision that you have to make that's best for your family and best for you. And so I always try to, help people through that and say, you have to make the decision that is right for you. Because if you make decisions that are quote unquote perfect for your child, but they're terrible for you and they're sucking the life out of you, it's not a good decision for your child, you know? And so it's just reframing that and really kind of thinking, how can I take care of myself so that I can, again, thinking long-term, how can I be my best self when I'm 60 or 70 so I can be around for my kids and my grandkids and my family and, you know, all the people that I love? Like, what's the point if I'm wearing myself into the ground and then I have all these health issues as I get older because I didn't take care of myself? And I think
I just wanted to, would you say that long, what did you call it? Long-term thinking?
Yeah.
Long-term thinking. Would you say that that's like a tenet of your self-care philosophy? Like, to like kind of have this longer vision?
I think it has to be, because that's basically, I mean, honestly, that's kind of what motivates you, and that will actually drive change. That will drive self-care, is if you do think long-term, you do think, where do I want to be in 10 or 20 years? You know, I think that all of us have people in our lives who have not aged well and are sick and have a hard time getting around and have multiple health conditions. Not to say that that means that you're not taking care of yourself, but you know, we all have those people in our lives that we wish we could help. We wish we could help. And it's sometimes it was like, yeah, I wish that they would have taken care of themselves more when they were younger. And so that's really hard to see. And so I think that when we see that in our lives and we really think on what we want to be when we are 60 or 70, you know, that's kind of when it's crazy to me that that's when we retire in the States. That's when we retire and we aren't working and we can like travel and do the things. But in our society, it's also when we're the most broken. And so you really have to start now. I think it has to, because we are such an instantaneous, we want things now, we want things done now. And it's really hard to do things that without the mindset of what am I doing long-term? Because if it's not really gonna, I mean, it does give you benefit now, but self-care is really, I think, something that has to be thought about as like a long-term, lifelong kind of solution to health. So, but you know, a sustainable way of pursuing health. Absolutely. And I think too, like the term, you know, self-care, I'm sure you guys have unpacked this. Sometimes that's a little cliche. Like, you know, it's like self-care. And even some people like to use that term and use it as a way to promote like dieting and fitness plans. And it's not that. Sometimes it's saying no to that, you know? And so self-care is highly individual. It's totally about your life and what works for you and what's going to make you a better person, more grounded, what's going to support your mental health, your mental and emotional health, and your physical health. It's not just about take care of your body and eat, you know, vegetables. Like, come on, you know, or take a bath. Like, I don't like baths, so that's not going to help. You know, it's very individual, and it's all about, you know, what's going to like help you in your life. So, yeah.
I love that I love that idea of long term, because it's so important, and that it speaks to one of the things that I've kind of been talking a lot about in my posts and blog posts and stuff, is that self-care is sometimes a sacrifice in the short term. Yeah, like, right. Like in a lot of ways, my business could grow a lot faster if I didn't take care of myself. Yeah, I'd grow faster for a year and then I'd be like burnt out. Yes. So, you know, the long-term goal is so important, and it is something that we don't have as a society. We're very like instant pleasure. Like, that's why we have so many issues with emotional eating and alcohol and all these things, is because we're just really after that. Like, we don't have that long-term vision. And there's something else that came up that I just think a lot of our listeners might relate to. Around our age group, like 30-ish, somewhere around there, I'm seeing a lot of my friends and, you know, also clients, but that are getting into a place where they're having a little bit of, you could call it hormonal dysregulation, you could call it HPA axis dysregulation. So adrenal, thyroid, pituitary, that kind of stuff going on, a lot of adrenal kind of fatigue. So they're starting to feel their bodies, you know, people always say like you hit 30 and it goes downhill or something. And it's like, I don't feel that way. I feel amazing. I feel better than I felt in my early 20s. Right. But I think when people have been kind of pushing themselves at this without the self-care, not with the long-term thing, and then they hit around 30, their adrenal issues start to like really flare up. And I was talking to a friend and she was saying, you know, I just feel like I'm broken. Like, how did this happen? And it's like you get the chance now to think long term. When you're 50, you know, taking the time off work, changing the diet, like, you know, sacrificing the social engagements in the moment for the long-term goal of like living vitally when you're 50 isn't being broken. That's just being a little bit rebellious against, you know, the system that we've put into place. Like, cause that's kind of how it works. It's like 30, we start feeling it. And then at 50, we're just like, or 60 or 70 or whatever, maybe even 70, we're really, you know, our quality of life is really diminished.
I like that. I like that phrase you said of being a rebel to the system, because the system is, you know, find your worth and your identity from going. And we do praise a specific, you know, we praise type A perfectionists and people entrepreneurs who have like pushed themselves. I mean, look at Steve Jobs. He was incredible, obviously built one of the most incredible companies, but his personal life was a mess. And he died not a very happy person. And it's like, yeah, you can make those choices and you can drive yourself to the ground and you can drive your health into the ground, but you're going to be sacrificing in certain areas. So what is it that you want to sacrifice? Do you want to sacrifice your health and your time with your family and rest and rejuvenation and happiness, mental and emotional health? Or do you want to just be constantly going and make sure that everybody else is taken care of but you? And as a result, sacrificing, you know, everything else around you that you love. In terms of like long term, like in the long term, you're going to not be able to participate and do the things that you like to do. And it's funny because it is a 30 thing, I think. And my co-host Stephanie Rupert she's like, you know, she's having issues with, I think she's about to turn 30, and she's having a lot of similar issues. And I was telling her that I often use my daughter as an excuse to get out of social engagements. Like, you know, or it was even my husband when we first got married, it'd be like, he's tired, we're going to go, you know, or something like that. And now it's like, well, I got to be home at 7 because that's Stell's bedtime.
I always say that. I'm like, Sean's tired. Like, I'm like, come with me to this party. So
yeah. So we can like be like, we're going to go. And it was very hard for me when I was young. I didn't have that like confidence yet to say that for myself without, you know, giving myself excuses. And now it's a very real, kind of quote unquote excuse, obviously. And we do stay home a lot more. And I love that. And there is a lot more self-care that I have to give myself as I get older. But I was telling her, I'm like, you know what? I use my kid all the time and you don't have that. But that doesn't mean that you cannot, you know, draw hard lines for yourself and say, look, I'm doing this, I'm traveling this, I'll be here. But if you can't come to me, or, you know, because it was like she wanted to see everybody at one time. And I was like, look, you have to draw a line and say, I'm coming in on this day, I'm leaving on this day. If you can't come and see me between that time, I can't constantly flex and try to please everybody and say, well, I'll stay one day longer, but that's really going to put me in a bind, but I'll just do it anyway. It's like, you have to still say no. These are the constraints that I give myself. I'm coming into town this day. I'm leaving this day. If you can't come see me, I'm sorry. I'll see you next time, you know? And that might sound a little harsh, but at the same time, you have to, like, if you're trying to do everything to see this, you know, whatever, let's say you're trying to see a friend. It's like, oh, well, I can't do it this day. I need to do it this day. You know, and then you see your friend and you're a little bit bitter and resentful and you're also real tired. And then you go back home and you're even more exhausted. Like, what's the point? You know, like, I'm like,
Totally.
Wait a second, what did you just do? You know, what's the point of that? So I think even if you're not married, you don't have a kid or a dog or whatever that you can make an excuse about, which is really a good, valid reason. You have to be able to say to yourself, I am worth this. I am worth saying no. You know, I'm worth going home early, as uncool as it may seem. You know, I'm going home tonight at 8:30. Like, you have to be able to be confident. I think that happens as you get older, but you really do need to be confident in the decisions for yourself. You don't have to, you know, give people reasons and apologize. Like, this is your life and your body and your health. So you get to make the decisions about what you want to do and what time you want to leave, and saying no to a party. It's totally fine. So,
yes, like so I just got married a couple weeks ago, and in our vows, Matt, my husband, said, you're the only person who would go to bed before most grandparents go to bed with me. And it's like, yes, call me Granny Tanny. That's fine.
Yeah.
But what I love that you said about that, well, I'm just like geeking out on this longevity thing. I love that idea, that forward perception, because we've been talking a lot about that. And this, we have people close to us in our life that we just see them and we're like, you know, they were there for their kids for all these years and didn't really take care of themselves. Now they're in a home, they're on medication, and their kids are having to take care of them.
Right.
So really, it's like, where do you want to end up? And if you really want to be there for those other people, you've got to take care of yourself. And then another thing, we are actually currently, so this is going to be a few weeks out, but we're talking about boundaries in the gathering, and we have all these podcasts on boundaries. And putting boundaries around self-care is so important, because when we are able to do that and respect ourselves, I think it actually really gives like other people kind of motivation or a better understanding on, okay, I see that that person is kind of setting boundaries around themselves and really caring for themselves. And then it almost kind of inspires those around us to invest in themselves and invest in their health a little bit more. So as selfish as it may seem, I think it's kind of important that we set that example so other people can maybe go, you know, I see that Kylee goes to bed at 9 and it's no problem. And she's able to, you know, get more done or feel more productive or just, you know, be happier because of that throughout the day. So
yeah, I do think it's an awesome example to other people and to eventually kids or, you know, anybody else that you're taking care of or you're mentoring or being an example to. It's like makes it normal. And it's nice to be able to be the person that breaks the perception, or breaks the mold, so to speak, where it's like everybody assumes this one thing, going to bed at 9 is a grandma time, but it's like, actually it's not, you know, it's not, it feels really good. And getting 8 hours of sleep is the best thing that I can do for me. And so I get to live my best life and go to bed at 9, you know? And so it's like, oh, maybe it is cool to go to bed at 9 and that's okay. And it's cool to be that person that gets to break the mold and make it cool. You know what I'm saying? Like make it not such a like,
okay.
like yeah, like I'm trendy, but like make it a thing that is not a big deal. Like to me, I think that I love seeing people who did things like some of my friends, even, you know, as they get older, they're just like, oh no, we do it this way and that's the way we do it. And it's just like, okay, it's just, there's no like, well, that's lame. And they would be like, I don't care, you know? So I value that a lot in some of my friends, is like, they have always, you know, as we all get older, it's like, you kind of start doing the things that work for you, and you don't have to apologize or try to make it seem like you're cool or try to make it seem like you need to be like, oh, well, I have my kid in 8 different things. You know, I've heard a lot from parents that are like, we do one thing and one thing only. You know, we have one sport and that's what we limit to. And we're not going to drive ourselves into the ground to make sure that our kid is in 8 sports. And so I love that when it's like, oh, I don't have to do it the way that society has told me to do it, which is to make sure that your kid is in baby Einstein classes at age 6 months. It's like, I can do it in a way that works for me and is great for our family. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I'm curious, like, what is your morning routine? Or are there certain things you do every week that, you know, this is my self-care time? You know, like we said, we talk, a lot of people, the trendiness is like self-care, manicures, pedicures. And I'm like totally all about kind of squashing that, because for me, the most important self-care is the kind of self-care that is like not glamorous. It's like making myself stop, you know, get off my computer at 6 p.m. and go spend time. Like I love my work and I get really obsessed with it. And like, so for me, it's almost like, it's really hard to stop, like close my computer. But I know, again, with that long-term vision, that's going to be, you know, my relationship's going to be better. So my life's going to be easier, all that stuff. So what are the things that you do in your life? And maybe it is massages, I don't know, but something like that, you know, that's your schedule.
It is not. I think it's so funny because everybody's always like, get a massage or get a manicure. And I'm like, that really actually makes me feel more stressed out. I don't get manicures or pedicures. Not to say that I wouldn't, but like.
My mom just said that. She said, it feels like I'm going to the dentist when I'm getting a pedicure.
That's really good. That's hilarious. Because it's kind of like, oh gosh, it's like one more thing I have to do on my schedule. I'd rather actually go to my functional medicine practitioner and have a chat with her than go get my nails done. I'm a terrible example right now, just to be honest, because I'm in the middle of, postpartum is a really interesting time. And there's only one thing that I've really been able to do, because when I was pregnant, I was writing the book. 6 weeks, when she was 6 weeks old, the manuscript was due. And then this whole last, 10 months has been trying to figure out how to be a full-time mom, but also launch a book and run my business. And so it's been a little, like, luckily I'm married to somebody who is also a very, like, he likes to work and likes what he does. And so we both are high achievers in that way. We like to be doing a lot of work. So we're a team, I cover her, he covers her. We both are trying to work together. But the one thing that I have prioritized over most things has been sleep. And so this past year, I have really let go of a lot of my identity being the fitness girl, because obviously fitness I love it. It's a huge part of my life. I used to be very involved with local gyms and stuff like that. But honestly, it started becoming more stress for me. It started becoming more, especially now, like, what would I do with my kid? Like, I don't, like, at this point, I'm like, gosh, it would be it feels like something I quote unquote should be doing, not something I genuinely want to do. I don't want to go find a daycare to put my kid in so that then I can go to a workout and then I can come back. And then I'm like totally shot on then I'm stressed about trying to get this Instagram post up and trying to talk about the book to this podcast and then trying to, email my publisher. And it just seems like if I can start my day with a really good sleep. And that was a big thing for me as a mom, was like working towards our end goal of sleeping through the night and getting her to sleep in a crib, which she ended up doing at 6 months. When she started sleeping through the night, that was huge for me. And so now the number one thing that I do is get to bed early and try to get at least 8 hours of sleep, because if I don't, I am an absolute wreck. And my anxiety starts to go up. My mental and emotional health is sacrificed, because I did struggle with postpartum anxiety. And so sleep is the number one. So like I said, today I slept until 8, and that was totally random, but I do not set an alarm. My child is my alarm, which she luckily wakes up around 8. She sleeps 8 to 8, and we put her to bed a little later so that she does sleep later. But it's incredible for me to be able to not set an alarm. And if I did set an alarm and I was trying to get a workout in and do the stuff, it would actually kind of ruin my day. Whereas that's the opposite of what every fitness expert would tell you. So I choose to not work out, and I choose to go for walks with my daughter. I want to do things with her and take her out. And so we do some pretty great power walks and stuff like that together. And that's amazing. And I do in the mornings, typically I do wake up before she gets up. So I try to sit down and have my devotional, which is like a specific to parenting. And I try to set my mind right for the day so that I can be a great parent and drawing from, God and what and a place of peace and understanding, and not from a place of rushing and frustration and trying to rush her and not having patience for her. So and I just have to set my day up that way. And I make sure that when she is up, I try to be, and this is still a very hard thing to do, but I do try to be invested and involved with her, because she is a much happier kid. And she is so much more agreeable when she has mom's attention, and I am playing with her and I'm on the floor with her and she's smiling. And, it's our bad days are when I'm trying to do too much and like trying to pretend like I'm watching her, but I'm on the computer. So I really do just try to be present with her. And, when she has a nap, if I want to get in a workout and I feel, like that's going to be helpful, I do that. But if I don't, and I have a lot of work to do, I do prioritize my work and getting that done, because I know that's going to make me much more present with her, after she gets up from her nap and when I'm able to put her down. And so now recently, now that we've been on such a good routine, my husband and I really try to make sure that we have an hour after we put her down to watch Netflix, sometimes chill, but mostly Netflix. And, we have that time to just enjoy, like, that's what we used to do before we had a kid. And we only recently started being like, let's sit down and like enjoy some of our shows that we used to watch. And he's had to actually pull away from a lot of his work. And he likes to be involved with 18 things. And he's recently just been like, I can't do this. Like, I'm never going to be involved with you guys if I'm always doing everything else. And I was like, that is true. So he has pulled himself out of a lot of stuff so that we can have, an hour or two at night together. So I know that sounds so like it's not like I do A, B, and C, but that is just really the basics of getting enough sleep, being present with my daughter, and having a short, devotional time that sets my spirit up for the day.
Yeah. That's real life.
It is real life.
It's totally unsexy. And that's what I really want to like, just the whole trend of self-care is like becoming that kind of like sexy self-care. And I just want to be like, no, it's like going to bed, like not sexy. You don't post on Instagram and like post a picture of your bed and be like, I'm going to bed now. Like this is awesome.
I want to say that too. It has been not Instagramming too. That is self-care because I think like it is so draining to think about. I used to be so stressed out about like, what can I post today? And this is as a business owner. But it's also things that hit people personally. It's like, they feel like they have to be posting these glorious image of their lives. And I'm like, yo, you can take a week off from Instagram and not announce it. You don't have to post a sign up that says, I'm taking an Instagram break. Like that is not what you need. It's crazy to me that is what social media is to us now, is like, we have to tell people if we're not going to be on Instagram for 2 days. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. I think it should be a normal part of our lives. We should be able to pull away and take 4 or 5 days off from the instant, constantly trying to post these pictures of like, this is me looking beautiful, having the perfect life. And like, we don't have to be on it. We don't have to scroll. We can take a day or two off from scrolling. And I know it is addictive and there's a whole lot of things wrapped up in that, but I think that's sometimes one of the best things you can do is stop putting the pressure on yourself to post these wonderful things. And even from a business perspective, constantly trying, like you said, your business is going to grow slower, but like, what are you sacrificing by constantly trying to take beautiful pictures and post everything perfectly on Instagram? And also, what are you sacrificing by constantly scrolling? So I think a lot of that is just a change in how we interact with people and the internet and socials. So.
Yeah, I think that, another interesting thing that we can do with our self-care is just like follow what brings us inner peace. Ask yourself, like, what brings me inner peace? What makes me feel peaceful? And for me, and also remembering that your self-care routine and the things, and maybe not even a routine, but the things that you do to show yourself care is going to change from time to time. So it's going to shift and it's going to change. And right now in my life, it's a lot of camping, being out in nature, leaving my phone, kind of like you said, leaving my phone nowhere near me when I'm sitting outside camping or when I'm mountain biking or something like that. And just being okay with that. And to be honest, for me, it was very difficult to just stop posting on Instagram 2 times a day because, what's going to happen? But I've honestly kind of been stepping away for over a month now, and I really don't feel bad. And it feels good. It feels free. Like, here I am. I don't care. And every once in a while I'll pop up and things like that. But I tend to be a private person. And for me, what is self-care and where do I feel peaceful is just only posting when I want to post. So I'm glad you brought that up.
2 times a day. I remember that, that just like, that gave me like a negative feeling, of like the pressure of like, what am I going to post this morning? What am I going to post tonight? And then being so wrapped up in like, what's the success of it? Like how many likes is it going to get? And it's just so sad, not sad. Like, I don't want to be like, so sad, but like, it's a hard place that we've brought ourselves to as business owners, as individuals. It's really hard to be constantly wrapped up in this, online world. And we're not present. We're not present with actual people. We're kind of wrapped up in our, what the perception is from society about our internet profiles, and I do think that a lot of the millennials are now starting to be like, like, I don't want to do this with my life, and that's really cool to see. So.
Yeah. Another thing that I love that you said is, yes, when we start to switch from like posting that much, I'm able to be more present and spend more time with the people and the relationships in my life that I love. And that for me is also part of self-care. It's like switching from being socially interactive to switching to connecting with maybe my handful of closest friends is part of my self-care thing as well. It's finding that real deep conversation versus like, here's my post, here's what I want to say. Oh, if you like it, and whatever, like.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Social media, man. I've been kind of having these like flashes of what, like, you know, when you just get like those kind of, it's like you zoomed out for a second and you're like, what's going on in the world? You know, like I've been getting that a lot lately. Like I'm like doing an Instagram story or something. I'm like, what is this? You know?
Yeah.
Like, what am I actually doing right now? Or yeah, it's like I have the opportunity to be present with my family and I'm like doing an Instagram story about our bike ride or something. And it's like, why? Like, so anyway, we're going to see how that plays.
Riding your bike. I'm just imagining you riding your bike, like holding your phone.
Exactly.
And then you crash.
Exactly. It's like, what am I doing? Yeah. Anyway, so I know you have a hard stop. So I would love for you to tell us about the book that's out. It will be out by the time this airs. And also if there was like one little snippet, like soundbite that you want everyone to know about self-care, you can tell us that too.
First thing that comes to mind is eat carbs, but I won't say that. Just for funny reasons, because keto is so popular right now. Yeah. So everybody's like, no carbs.
Everyone's like, what?
It's okay to eat carbs.
Excuse me while I eat my donut.
Yeah. So the book is really interesting. It really came out of, so our podcast, the Well-Fed Women podcast, has been going on for, 3.5 years or so. And our idea was, let's empower people to eat and move in a way that works for them. Because obviously, even 3.5, 4 years ago, even in paleo, which is kind of how it started for us, was like we were eating paleo and wanted to kind of spread that word. And even in paleo, it was very judgmental. It was very eat these things. And we would get a ton of questions from people about, let's say, well, if I'm going to do the whole 30 for 30 days, shouldn't I be doing it for 60 days? And like, well, I don't know if I should eat cacao powder or not. And does that make it bad? And so it was just like all this even in our like holistic health community, it was like, what are we doing? We're so focused on these small little things. Like, how can we get people to really look at the big picture? How can we get people to really look at, like, let's look at food through a different lens, which is eat in a way that works for you, while understanding there are certain foods that can cause problems and may be problematic for you, may be causing autoimmune symptoms or flares, or maybe causing digestive issues, or maybe causing your hormones to go out of whack. With that understanding, really, not, and as another side tangent, a lot of people would say like, well, because this food, whatever, let's say dairy, can typically cause autoimmune flares, then nobody should eat dairy. It was like, it was like, okay, so then everybody had such a narrow view of like what foods they should eat. It was just so, it was so limiting for people, and people were kind of going crazy. And we wanted to really come back from that and say, okay, we can still have this understanding of, there are some foods that might be causing issues. And so we go over that in the book. We give people a protocol to show them, how can you evaluate foods and figure out which ones are, problematic for you. And then the other side of it is macronutrient ratios, which is, that has always been such a hot topic in society. It's like, for a while, I'm sure all three of us did it. It was low fat, low fat, low fat. And then it was like, oh, fat's good, but now it's carbohydrate. And so now it's like no carb, low carb, low carb, pea on a stick, keto. And it's, to me, I'm like, didn't we say we already did this? We already made this mistake. And not saying that the ketogenic diet is not super beneficial, especially for people who have neurological conditions and stuff like that. But from a general health and a sustainable health perspective, how can we take care of ourselves, nourish our bodies, and eat in a way that is supportive to our own health, that may not be an XYZ long, sorry, my daughter just screams. I was like, they're obviously back home. But that's not a XYZ one size fits all solution, which is what sells and what people want. But how can we provide people with some information about how to pursue health in a way that works for them? So if you feel better eating more carbohydrate, here's, you know, a great meal plan for you, and here's some great recipes. If you feel better eating more fat, here's another great meal plan, and both are okay. And you know what? Both, you may fluctuate throughout your life. When you're breastfeeding and doing high intensity training or whatever, you may find that you do a lot better with a higher carbohydrate diet. But there may be a phase in your life 5 years down the road where a higher fat, lower carbohydrate diet really fits your needs. And it's not this one size fits all, like, this is the way I need to eat the rest of my life. We want to provide people with kind of like the big picture things, like, here's some information about food quality. Here's some information about what foods may be potentially problematic for you. And then here's a way to navigate that. Here's a way to create a plan that works for you throughout your life that is very sustainable. And so it's kind of like a one-stop shop. It's kind of like, you know, the podcast in book form in the palm of your hand, which is really great. And it is, we do have to provide some pretty hard evidence, you know, like hard, I don't want to say rules, but like instruction. You know, it's not just like eat what works for you and that's great. You know, it's like people do want some guidance. And so it's a book that provides guidance on how to navigate food. We talk a lot about mindset. Which I love. I'm glad that my publisher was like cool with that, but we do talk a lot about food morality and the wagon mentality and, you know, their very restrictive mindset. And then shocker, how, you know, being quote unquote overweight actually can be healthy. And you can be healthy and be overweight, and you can be unhealthy and be, you know, a great BMI or whatever. So, all of this is in quotations for everybody who can't see me constantly doing these quotations, via video, but, and then we combine it as well. Fitness is a big deal to me. And so I do a entire chapter on fitness and how to create a plan that works for you. And I do talk about resting more than not, and how it is okay to take some time off. And how to expose your body to the appropriate amount of exercise or fitness based on what you're going through in your life. Because exercise is stress. And if you're chronically stressed and underslept, and then you're trying to do a high intensity workout, it may not work out really well for you. And it may not be the health, you know, thing that you're looking for, a health solution. So, I talk a lot about that. And then I do give some workouts, some workout plans, and then really, really in-depth descriptions of how to perform the movements, because I did want it to be very beginner friendly. Like this, my goal was, you know, definitely your podcast community can benefit from this, but my goal was like, let's provide something that's very beginner friendly and can get out to a lot of people and change people's mindset that they need to be eating the ketogenic diet or else, or they're not healthy. You know, let's really get the word out that you can eat in a variety of ways. You know, like there's a lot of different ways you can eat and be healthy. So yeah.
I got a copy actually just the other day, and I've been going through it, and I don't do a lot of nutrition stuff as much anymore with clients, but I still get a lot of people ask me about it, you know, especially people that kind of don't really understand coaching. They're like, oh, you're a nutritionist. Cool. I want my husband to work with you, or I want, you know, and it's like, so I love having these resources to give to people. And I've always given everyone when it's super beginner thing is the 21-day sugar detox or practical paleo, which I love. Diane Simflip is awesome. But this is the new book, Noelle.
Yay.
Yeah. It's great. It's like, it's the thing that if you're like, I want a nutritionist to tell me exactly what to do, it's like, here's the book. And then, you know, if you need accountability and that kind of stuff, that's awesome. But
that's exactly what I wanted it to be. And you nailed it, which is like, you can't work with me anymore one-on-one, but this is exactly what I would tell you. You know, and it's something for beginners, but also advanced folks alike. And yeah, so that's awesome. Thank you for saying that. That's cool.
Yeah. So where can people find it? And what's it called?
Okay. So my blog is coconutsandkettlebells.com. That's where you can find everything. And then the book is available basically where all books are sold. So I'm sure you guys will link to it in the show notes, but you can get it on Amazon. That's probably the easiest place, but I'm sure, you know, Barnes and Noble would have it in stock and all that stuff. So go buy it.
Go buy it.
Yes, go buy the book. I've been trying, I was telling you guys earlier, but I've been trying to figure out all the different ways to say, buy this book, it's great, you know, on Instagram and all this stuff. I'm like, what's another way to say, buy this book? But yeah, it's our heart and soul. And it's, that's exactly what I wanted it to be. So that's great. I like to hear that.
So good. Yay.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Noelle. We so appreciate it. And this was amazing. And I'm sure everyone will find so much value from it. And we will link to all of your stuff in the show notes. And
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, girls.
Yeah, thanks, Noelle.